Yeah.
All right. It's time, fellas. Let's call this meeting to order.
Alderman McHenry,
Here.
Alderman Luckett, Alderman Sarter, Alderman Sarter,
Here.
Alderman Steverson,
Here.
Alderman Foy,
Here.
Alderman Thompson,
Here.
Alderman Gill.
Present. Alderman McHenry, will you lead us in prayer this evening, sir?
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to meet tonight, dear Lord, and we ask that you be with each and every one of our city workers, especially during this time. Dear Lord, we ask that you be with our children who are going to school and the teachers and administrators and leaders of that school. Keep them safe, dear Lord. We ask that you continue to bless our city, and I ask that you forgive us where we fail you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Yeah.
Approval of consent agenda items. All items under this heading will be considered to be approved with one motion and one vote. If further discussion is desired on any item, it will automatically be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered as a general business item.
Gentlemen, as we discussed in the work session, just due to time restraints, I'd like to remove 11 and 12 to general business, so everybody's fully informed of what I'm presenting to the board tonight. Any additional items that, if not, 11 and 12 been moved to general business? Madam Clerk, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda this time? There's one motion by Alderman Gill. Alderman seconded. All right, we have two motions on the floor. Any further discussion, gentlemen? All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it.
General business number 11. I'm going to read both at the same time. Number 11, order to adopt a resolution naming authorized representatives and authorizing the loan application for the Drinking Water Systems Improvement Revolving Loan Fund. Number 12, order to adopt a resolution that the City of Pearl agrees to adopt Heflin Engineering's recommended rate structure upon acceptance of a Drinking Water Systems Improvements Revolving Loan. All
right, at this time, I'm going to have Austin Moore and Mr. Hugh Heflin come up with Heflin Engineering to discuss this plan. It's pretty comprehensive, so it might take us a minute, but we will be able to, like I said before, fully inform the aldermen and also the citizens of our city, where we're working towards the future of our city dealing with our water.
Thank you, Mayor. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. We've been meeting with the mayor and the public works team for the past several months and have come up with a comprehensive water system improvements plan. We're calling this a 5-year plan for the water system. And as we dive into that, I kind of wanted to give you a quick overview of your water system and just let you know some of the good things we have and some of the problem areas that we've been looking at through this evaluation. Y'all have it right at around 10,000 customers, 85% of which is residential. As y'all might recall, y'all adopted a new rate structure around February of 2019. That's proven to be a really good increase to the water fund for the city. 3 basic components of your water system. You've got your distribution system, your wells, and your tanks. And as with any city, what y'all are dealing with is aging infrastructure. That's one of the primary issues, especially with your water distribution lines. Much of the system that we've been looking at and evaluating is part of that original Jackson municipal water system. A lot of asbestos cement pipe that dates back to the 50s and 60s. It's very frequent leaky pipes that your public works team is constantly battling. A lot of times through the nights, lots of water loss, a number of outages. Unfortunately, it got y'all in the news a couple times, and obviously we want to prevent that from happening. Another component of that is in this older part of the system, you've got a lot of 2-inch and 4-inch water lines. Those size lines are insufficient for fire flow in these residential neighborhoods. A big component of this older infrastructure, it's been in the ground for a long time. A lot of the public works staff and even ourselves We quite frankly don't know where some of the pipes are, where a lot of the valves are. So when we do have a leak, it's oftentimes difficult to turn the water off, and water will leak and spill out on the ground, oftentimes for a number of days through the night before we're able to get that resolved. And we're going to talk about some solutions to fix that. Real quickly on your water wells, you'll have 11 water wells in your city. We typically say that water wells have a typical design life of about 25 to 30 years. Your water wells have an average age of 29 years old, so they're up there in terms of their age. One interesting thing I wanted to point out was kind of thinking about your system in terms of the west, central, and east. Your 3 east side water wells, which primarily serve, the west side, your 3 west side water wells that serve the west side of your system, which happens to be where your most of your high end, a lot of your retail, your Bass Pro outlet, most of your hotels, a lot of the higher end infrastructure and growth in that part of your city. Those 3 wells that serve that system are over 50 years old. It's safe to say that they're more or less on borrowed time, and at some point in the foreseeable future, you will have to deal with those wells. And drilling a new water well is not a quick and easy task. It's something that you need to plan for and get ahead of. Just a quick statistic on your water that we found to kind of be interesting. Y'all pump on average about 4 million gallons of water a day. That's a lot of water when you think about it. And kind of a staggering statistic there is that we've calculated out of the 4 million gallons that you pump, y'all lose 44% of your water through water loss. So every single day that passes, y'all are losing about 1.8 million gallons of water a day. And typically that is happening because of a lot of this aging infrastructure, leaking lines that we've talked about previously. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we dive into the plan. And the third component is your water tanks. You'll have 5 water storage tanks, totaling about 5.3 million gallons worth of storage. We calculate your water demand to be, and again, your water tanks, they're really for 2 purposes. One's for fire protection and fighting fires. You need a lot of water to fight a fire over a long period of time. And the other part is on your water wells, you want long run times on your wells at one time so that you fill your tanks up, such as overnight. You get your tanks full, people wake up in the mornings using a lot of water, your tanks are full and able to serve those capacities. But your drinking water demand plus your fire demand is about a 6.8 million gallon requirement. That's based on some American Fire Insurance Association standards, based on City of Pearl's population of about 26,000 people. Again, a 6.8 million gallon requirement based on these calculations. Your available storage is right at 5.3. So you could call that a 1.5 million gallon deficit in water storage. Sort of like your water wells, most of your tanks are in the center and east part of the system. So it's safe to say that your storage capacity and fighting fires and supplying large volumes of water to the west side of the system would be challenging should that situation occur. I guess I could pause right here. That was just kind of a brief overview of your system and some of the things we've been looking at. And at this time, I was going to jump into what we're calling a 5-year comprehensive plan. There's 2 parts of it, a part 1 and a part 2. I'd be glad to answer some questions at this time before we kind of present our plan of attack here.
And when we talk about our loss, Austin, I think in the discussion that we had, you mentioned 44%. A good rate to be at. I think what Mr. Heflin shared with us was more like 30. And that's what you say with a more robust system in place. And I want to present this to Alderman because obviously we're paving roads right now. We have an EPA sewer grant where we're trying to identify troubled areas in our sewer. And then also from the standpoint for the general public, it's my intention to try to address any other infrastructure. In this particular case, it's our water. So water is very important, not only for obvious reasons that you have to drink it to live and you got to have it to cook and go to the restroom and things of that nature, but also it's for economic development for the future of the city. People look at those things. So there's an overall component here, and to address the lines that are reoccurring to our truck foreman in our water department. They go back to lines, and I know that our citizens understand that. This plan is also to address those lines in those troubled areas. So I'm gonna let Austin take it from here, but when we talk about a total package on infrastructure, my intention is to do it all. I mean, you can't do it all at one time because of cost, obviously, but roads, sewer, water, that's when we're really attacking the beast, and it's a lot to bite off, but you just take off one bite at a time. I think that you would agree, and there's some funding there where it can be attainable for the city to address this issue.
That's correct. So we'll talk about how we may attack these problems, and then also obviously how we're going to pay for it. That's a huge component here. And just talking on the water loss, if y'all could get down in the 30% range, y'all would be in line with a lot of your peers per se. Some of your model cities, if you want to call them that. Some of the industry standards say they want to see you down around 15%. So just kind of to put that in frame of reference, 44% water loss it's a high number, and we believe we have some solutions that may help put a dent in that number. Again, this is a 5-year plan. It's not going to get everything, but we've got to start somewhere. Part one of this comprehensive proposal, we're calling it a water system comprehensive planning. And essentially what we're looking at doing here is building a map or a database of your infrastructure in the city. We intend to go out and field collect data of all your known water line locations, your valves, things of these, take all the paper maps we can get our hands on, and put together a comprehensive plan of your water system that shows where everything is, that's GPS located, it's in a GIS database. Your public works staff can view this through GIS programs, Google Earth programs, on tablets in the field, but just trying to more modernize your system to know where the valves are, so that when we do have a leak at 10 o'clock at night, Shane and his guys can know where the valve is they need to turn off, how to get it turned off quickly so that we can reduce that amount of water loss that we're seeing, and obviously have a much more minimal impact on your customers. So that's.
Can I interrupt you just for a minute?
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, just for the impact, I think that last summer, there was not a digital map to show, there's no historical knowledge there for us to know where the valve was at Eldorado. I think everybody understands and knew that water leak. So for us to go out there and to go ahead and know where that valve is and turn it off, the difference was us having to call a contractor in and repair that, and it cost $15,000. So us having our digital system in place makes it a lot more convenient. And for me, and Shane and I talked about this as well, was for the city in the future. When I'm dead and gone, or I'm not in this office anymore, we've left something behind for other people to know and be able to locate, where we have a much more, I guess the better term is, everybody knows where everything is, so nobody takes it to the grave, and it's digitized, and it's in a file, and it's available for our water department in the future. That's what I'm trying to get out of my mouth. But so I think that's important. That's making the city better in the future, and that's part of this project as well. Continue.
That's correct, and a component of that is you're keeping this map up to date. If we build a great model, then we don't touch it for 5 more years, and they'll continue to grow, then we're going to kind of always be catching up. So maintaining the system would be another major component. Once we have this map built of all your valves and your pipe networks for the water system, something that kind of goes hand in hand with this is we call it a water system hydraulic model. But it's basically a computer model where we can analyze all the flows and pressures in your system. If y'all have a developer coming in proposing to do a development, he says, hey, my fire demand is this, and what kind of flows and pressures can y'all give me? We can actually simulate what those might be. And it's also just a good tool to have to kind of know where the weaknesses in your system are, where y'all might could plan to make some improvements for the future. But having a hydraulic model to evaluate those types of things. And it's also something that the Mississippi State Department of Health recommends that a city like Pearl have to evaluate these kind of things. So it sort of goes hand in hand with this comprehensive plan in the GIS. Mayor, you want me to get into kind of funding and how we may approach this comprehensive planning, just the mapping and modeling part?
Right, the initial this year, our expense be from current budget as we enter into October 1. I think we discussed $75,000 to try to put some of those things in play. And then I would appreciate if you would discuss the SRF funding. Not that we're going to have to bite this thing off at one time, but we can do it in increments. It's a revolving loan that we can actually obtain funds from, and it was paid for through sales tax.
That's correct. And again, this part one, it's more of a planning tool. It's the mapping and the modeling. The proposal there was $75,000 for year one, beginning October 1, which would be paid for through the city's water sewer fund. Part two of this project is more about the construction and actually getting out and fixing some things. And the funding source we're looking at with it is called, it's administered by the Mississippi State Department of Health, who kind of governs your water system. It's called the Drinking Water Systems Improvements Revolving Loan Fund. It's a low interest program. And before we talk about how we may fund that, I'll kind of get into what we're looking at doing in this 5-year program. Again, part two is, we're calling this water system improvement. This is the actual design and construction of some, what we believe are much needed improvements in your system. Again, 3 components of that: the water distribution system, water well, and the water tank. When we sat down with the mayor and the Public Works team, they basically gave us a list of, hey, here are our problem child water line areas that we're constantly working on. They're constantly leaking. We're losing a lot of water through. Our customers out of water. These are our top priorities of areas that we just know that we need to get out and fix. And we've identified those just real quickly. It's kind of in the older original part of the system, but it's St. Paul, Penner, Avis, Moore, Burma, Cotard, a portion of Old Brandon Road, Gatewood, West Pine, East Lisa, Betty, and Pemberton. That's kind of our, I think, top 12 priority areas. It's not all of them, but we got to start somewhere. These are where your crews are spending a lot of time through the night, a lot of overtime work, constantly fixing leaks in these areas. The anticipated cost for this portion of work is about it's $1.85 million for construction and engineering. And I'm not sure if y'all have the handout with you, but there's a detailed breakdown cost estimate of those. The second part of that is the water well component. Again, just getting back to the age of your water wells, the west side of your system, the 3 wells you got over there, they're over 50 years old. They're on borrowed time, and we think it'd be wise to start planning for the future, being prepared with a plan, as opposed to having one of those go down and it taking us a year or 2 to get a new well up and running. But the proposal there is it's a new 1,500 gallon a minute water well with all the site improvements, generator, associated equipment that goes along with that. All the construction, engineering, loan administration for it is $1.25 million for a water well. And we're proposing that somewhere on the west side of your system where your oldest wells are, and we kind of see a deficit on that side of your system. The third thing is we're proposing a new 1 million gallon elevated storage tank, again, on the west side of your system where there's limited storage capacity. The total cost of it is $2.2 million for a 1 million gallon elevated tank. Total package here is $5.3 million. I know that sounds like a ton of money. It does to me as well. Fortunately, there's a couple of good funding mechanisms to help y'all pay for this. One of those, as I mentioned, is the Drinking Water SRF program. It's a 20-year, 1.95% interest program. The city of Pearl actually qualifies for about $350,000 worth of grant through that program. And we'll do everything we can to get y'all, they call it principal forgiveness. It's the same thing as grant. But financing a $5.3 million project over 20 years works out to a monthly payment of about $25,000. If you think about that in terms of customers, I've got about 10,000 customers. It's about $2.50 a customer. That's a little easier number for me to swallow even. But the other comment I'll make about $25,000 a month payment is it is a lot of money, but with the February 2019 rate increase y'all did, your water fund is generating
Let me clarify something. There was not a residential increase.
yeah,
It was a commercial.
I misstated that.
Commercial increase. Our commercial business have not had an increase in 20 years.
Yep. So it was a modest commercial rate increase that's provided a nice increase to your water fund that would help cover this monthly payment. Thinking about schedule and how we would attack this thing, time is, I guess, a little bit of the essence here. October 1st is when this program opens up for what they call a request for ranking. So we have 2 resolutions for y'all to consider tonight that would allow the city to proceed with this. It'll take the project about a year to get funded. So this time next year, we'd be looking at signing some loan documents to undertake this. And the plan would be to tackle this for a couple of years over the next 5 years once it's funded. So kind of maybe stepping into this as much as we can, but just trying to eat this elephant one bite at a time. It's a major undertaking, and a lot of it's kind of catching up to help you get where you need, but we still got a long way to go, and we thought this would be a good start for the city.
I got a question. I think it's item 12 says adopt a resolution that agrees to adopt recommended rate structure on acceptance alone. I've looked through my packet. I don't see a recommended rate.
Say again, Casey, what'd you say?
When I look through the packet, I don't see a recommended rate structure.
There is not, if I understand your question correctly, to proceed with this program, there's 2 resolutions that the State Department of Health requires the board to adopt. One of them is about the water rates. It basically says if we're going to loan y'all $5.3 million, we need the board to be on board with adjusting the rates as necessary to help pay the cost of this program. At this time, we are not recommending a rate increase. As I mentioned, the 2019 commercial increase has put y'all in a great financial position to undertake this project. It's simply a matter of saying that we're going to review your budget and show that Pearl is financially stable to borrow $5.3 million and adjust rate if necessary.
But if this, Brendan, this might be a question for you. If I'm reading this right, we vote yes on number 12, and Heflin comes back and says, okay, you need to raise your residential rate. Are we obligated to do that?
I think what they're initially doing is ultimately what he's saying is that's the condition of entering into the loan program, correct?
That's correct.
But we're still on the front end of adopting. Ultimately, we'd have to adopt the ultimate loan, correct?
Correct. So October 1st is a request for ranking. You basically say we want to borrow 5.3 million, put our name on the list. Come March 1st, you have a loan application due. You're basically applying for the money at that point. Again, you hadn't signed up or committed to anything. And then about this time next year, August, September 2021 would be when you actually sign the loan document. And at that time, if you did need an increase to undertake this, we would recommend that. It's basically just a legal document saying that Pearl's financially stable and the board is going to adopt rates as necessary to help pay off this debt. Is that a fair way to put it?
Right, but at this time, we're solvent. There's no need. And matter of fact, Heflin Engineering is the one that set our rates. And, you know, I was of the mind, Mr. Heflin and I agree with this. I don't think that you should ever go up on rates just because of the fact that there's a reason to do so every year. I would prefer to have an evaluation by Mr. Heflin's firm and then go up. Now, in this particular situation, like Austin said, it's agreeing to that because I think probably what the state sees in some other cities is that people aren't financially prudent and they're not taking care of business and they are not solvent like we currently are. So they want to make sure that the loan is actually funded by the city. That's from what I understand it for. I've talked to Bruce Stevens with West Rankin Utility Authority. He's also mentioned those facts to me. So it's not that we're obligating ourselves so much, Casey. I think it's more of them trying to protect themselves from a loan standpoint.
And I just want to make sure that we're not obligating ourselves that if they come back and say, well, you know, you could raise your rates. Well, I just want to make sure we're not obligated to raise them.
And I think ultimately the board would, at that point, would have the opportunity to take their recommendation and take it or not. I mean,
It wouldn't be without a vote.
right,
Right.
you still would have to vote in the future to do it. You're just saying now that you're prepared to move forward if the right situation is presented to you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so we wanted to have that commercial rate in place as we move forward. I had planned on having this comprehensive, but like I said before, you have to have necessary funding in place to be able to attempt something like this anyway. Our fund balance in our water department is healthy. And so right now I think is a good time to look for the future. And we're not, like I said, biting all this off at one time. But there's some trouble here. If you start putting pen to paper, it's like having a bad automobile. If you start having to repair after a general period of time, it's time to get a different vehicle. In this situation, there's no telling how much money that the city's spending in overtime, repeatedly sending our guys out to repair these lines. And over a long period, if we repaired it on the front end with this particular comprehensive plan, the city would actually save money. So those are the type of things that we're trying to think about. And again, the historical knowledge, having it in-house, not someone retired at home. We have those valves in place. And lastly, just the frustration of our citizens, water notices, more water notices on houses and things of that nature. I want to make sure that we're building a system that we can be proud of and our citizens can be proud of. And I think this is the mechanism that we have to take in order for that to happen. You guys have some additional questions about items 11 and 12? Okay. All right. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate it, man. Just on this general business item number 11 at this time, Madam Clerk, would you mind just reading it, just stating for the audience?
Consider an order to adopt a resolution naming authorized representatives and authorizing the loan application for the Drinking Water Systems Improvements Revolving Loan Fund.
What's the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
You moved. Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Number 12, consider an order to adopt a resolution that the city of Pearl agrees to adopt Heflin Engineering's recommended rate structure upon acceptance of the Drinking Water Systems Improvements Revolving Loan Fund.
Is there a motion by the board?
So moved.
One motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion, gentlemen?
Just want to again clarify that this is not a rate increase. We're not obligated to increase.
You're not.
And I appreciate you saying that, being concerned, Casey, because we're not doing a rate increase in order for this work to be completed. Any further discussion, guys?
Did you make Casey's comments part of the minute?
I will.
Well, and the resolution states that.
The resolution will stay.
Yes.
I still want it part of the minute.
All right,
Thank you.
Alderman McGill wants that to be displayed in the minutes. All right. All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on this evening, we've had several people pass within the last couple of weeks. I think some of the aldermen would like to mention some folks that we would like to adjourn in their honor. So if anybody has a recommendation on people that we would like to adjourn in their honor, please do so at this time.
Mayor, I'd like to say that we adjourn in Brother Alan Stevens' memory, Rankin Baptist Association leader for many years.
Okay, all right, that's one. I believe there might be another one out there that someone might want to say.
Yes, Karen Prestige.
Yeah.
Lifelong resident of Pearl, just a good lady.
Karen and Mike Preston. Karen had just recently passed away. And also Brother Alan Stevens. I just asked the general public to keep this family in your prayers. At this time, I would entertain a motion.
Jeffrey Walters.
Okay,
Jeffrey Walters.
that's right. Jeffrey Walters passed away as well. Jeffrey Walters was a great Pearl football player and a Pearl Pirate, and praying for his family as well. So I just, again, would like for everybody that's watching to lift these families up in prayer. So we have 3 people tonight that we're adjourning in the memory of: Karen Prestige, Alan Stevens, and Jeffrey Walters. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So,
All right, there's 2 motions on the floor. All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.